Reading from the Krishna Samhita by Bhaktivinode Thakur. This is the introduction, part 4. Although the Ramayana is counted as poetry, it can also be called a history. It was written by Valmiki Rishi, who was a contemporary of Ramachandra. We don't feel that the current Ramayana was written by Valmiki alone. By considering the conversation between Narada and Valmiki, and the recitation of the Ramayana in Ramachandra's assembly by Luva and Kusha, it is understood that Valmiki composed many of the verses glorifying the characteristics of Ramachandra in the Ramayana. But after some time, one scholar elaborated on Valmiki's work. I think that the present-day Ramayana was propagated after the composition of the Mahabharata, because while chastising Jabali, Ramachandra accused him of being polluted by the Shakya philosophy. It is felt that the present-day Ramayana was written around 500 BC. It is said that the Mahabharata was composed by Vyasadeva, and there is no objection to this. But it cannot be accepted that the Vyasa who divided the Vedas and received the title Veda Vyasa at the time of Yudhishthira was the same Vyasa. The reason for this is that in the Mahabharata, there are descriptions of kings such as Janmajaya, who ruled after Yudhishthira. There are specific references about the Manu scriptures in the Mahabharata. Therefore, the present-day Mahabharata must have been written sometime after 1000 BC. From this it appears that Veda Vyasa first made a draft of the Mahabharata, and later another Vyasa elaborated on it and presented that under the name of Mahabharata. One learned scholar from the Shudra community named Lomaharshana recited Mahabharata before the sages at Naimisharanya. Perhaps he created the present-day Mahabharata because during his time the original 2400 verses that were written by Vyasadeva were expanded to 100,000 verses. Now we have to consider when Lomaharshan lived. It is stated that he was killed by Baladev. From this incident, it is to be understood that if one becomes a learned devotee, he should be respected as a Brahmin even if he is a Shudra. The Vaishnava community of that time created this incident in order to confirm this statement. Actually, that assembly gathered long after the time of Baladev. The Lomaharshan, who is said to be Vyasadev's disciple, may not have been the speaker of that assembly. Maybe Lomaharshan, the disciple of Vyasadeva, was killed while speaking on Vedic history during the time of Baladev. Much later, even after the conversation between Janamajaya and Vaishampayan, a person named Soti recited Mahabharata. The previous incident was then connected to that recitation in the course of time. Since there is no special mention of Buddha in the Mahabharata, it is understood that Mahabharata was recited by Soti before the reign of Ajatashatru and after the reign of Brihadrath descendants. If we study the descriptions of Naimisharanya, then we come to know that when the peaceful rishis saw the end of the Chandra and Surya dynasties, they felt unprotected due to the absence of Kshatriyas. Therefore, they went to the secluded Naimisharanya and passed their lives discussing the scriptures. There is one more belief about the assembly of Naimisharanya. For some time after the battle of Kurukshetra and before the coronation of King Nandivardhana, the Vaishnava religion was very prominent. The main conclusion of the Vaishnavas is that every living entity has a right to cultivate spiritual life. But according to the opinion of the Brahmins, persons of castes other than Brahmin are ineligible for liberation. Sober persons of other castes may be born again as Brahmins to endeavor for liberation. Because of these two conflicting opinions, the Vaishnavas highly regarded the scholars of Sutta Goswami's line and thus established them at Naimisharanya as superior to the Brahmins. Some of the Brahmins there who were less qualified and controlled by wealth also accepted the scholars of Sutta's line as superior. Those less qualified Brahmins defied the doctrines of Karmakanda and accepted Sutta as their spiritual master. They took shelter of Vaishnava religious principles, which are the only means of crossing the influence of Kali, the abode of sin. Anyway, that assembly gathered long after the Battle of Kurukshetra. There's no doubt about this. The Darshan Shastras, philosophical scriptures, were compiled a short time after the compilation of the Mahabharata. There are 6 prominent philosophical systems current in India: Nyaya, logic; Sankhya, Patanjali or yoga; Kannada or Vaisheshika; Purva Mimamsa or Karma Mimamsa; and Uttara Mimamsa or Vedanta. All these philosophical systems were introduced after Buddhism. The rishis who propounded these systems first composed these philosophies in sutras. The Vedic sutras were compiled to facilitate easy remembrance, but this was not the case with the sutras of these philosophical systems. When the Brahmins were attacked by the mighty Buddhist philosophy, they first compiled the Upanishads, which are the pinnacle of Vedic literature, and thus strengthened their doctrine with logic and argument. The Buddhists gradually presented many philosophical systems such as Sogata, Madhyamika, and Yogacara. Soon afterwards, they entered into intense debate with the Brahmins. The Brahmins then introduced their 6 philosophical systems, beginning with Nyaya and Sankhya, keeping them in the form of sutras and passing them on only to the disciples. During the time of Ramachandra, some Vedic knowledge in the form of Anvikshiki was composed by Gautama Rishi and was current at that time. According to their needs, the Brahmins composed the present system of Nyaya under Gautama's name and substituted it for the previous system. In Gautama's sutras, there was a tendency to counter the Sogata philosophy. The scriptures of Kannada come under the category of Nyaya scriptures. In the system of Sankhya, there are also many statements against Buddhism. The system of Patanjali falls under the category of Sankhya. The Purva Mimamsa propounded by Jamini supports the Karmakanda system that was rejected by the Buddhists. Although Vedanta scriptures are the most recent, they have been accepted as another form of Anvikshiki since they're based on the Upanishads. Therefore, all philosophical scriptures were written in the 800 years between 400 BC and 400 AD. The Puranas were compiled after the Darshan Shastras or philosophical scriptures. The Puranas that are mentioned in the Mahabharata and Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad are composed of Vedic stories. There are 18 in all. The Markandeya Purana is the oldest because there's no mention of future kings in it. The Markandeya Purana contains explanations of the Dharma Shastras, glorifications of the sun god and goddess Durga, and elimination of doubts regarding the Mahabharata. The story of King Surat of the Chaitra dynasty is also given. From this it is understood that the Markandeya Purana may have been written after the kings of the Chitranaga dynasty of Chotanagapur were defeated by the Cholas. This is confirmed by the word Kola Vidvamsina. At that time, the Brahmins and Kshatriyas created by Parashuram were very prominent in India. Therefore, it has been concluded that this Purana was written after 500 AD. Among the other Puranas, the Vishnu Purana is the most respected. It was compiled just after the Markandeya Purana. There is no doubt that the Vishnu Purana was composed by a South Indian scholar, because it is stated therein, that the people should begin their meal with tasty preparations and finish with bitter preparations. This practice is current in South India. The author of the Vishnu Purana has mentioned in his book the particular system of eating found in his own province. The Aryans, however, ate sweets at the end of their meal. The Vishnu Purana was written about 600 AD. Other Puranas, like the Padma and Skanda Purana, were written around 800 AD, because those Puranas contain discussions of modern philosophies. These Puranas were written after the Shankaracharya preached his philosophy Advaitavada, or monism. In his commentary, he quotes verses from the Vishnu Purana, so it is believed that the Vishnu Purana was written before his time. Now we will consider the modern scholar's view on the date of the appearance of Srimad Bhagavatam, the jewel of all scriptures. Not understanding our statements, third-grade people may lose all faith and consider this scripture a recent work. Therefore, they should not read this section. Actually, Srimad Bhagavatam is not a recent book. It is eternal and ancient like the Vedas. Respected Sridhar Swami has confirmed the eternality of the Bhagavatam by using the words Tarankara Sajani. Srimad Bhagavatam has been accepted as the supreme fruit of the Vedic desire tree. From Pranava, Om, came Gayatri. From Gayatri came the Vedas. From the Vedas came the Brahma Sutras. From the Brahma Sutras came Srimad Bhagavatam. This Paramahamsa Sanhita consists of inconceivable topics in relation with the Supreme Truth that have brightly risen in the form of a Satchidananda sun after being reflected through the samadhi of the author. Those who have eyes should see, those who have ears should hear, and those who have a mind should meditate on the topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. People who are infected by the blindness of partiality are deprived of the sweet taste of Srimad Bhagavatam. Let the supremely conscious Lord be merciful by destroying their blindness. Srimad Bhagavatam has no birth because it is eternal without beginning or end. Nevertheless, it is extremely desirable to ascertain when, where, and by whom this literature was manifested according to modern opinion. Modern scholars have concluded that Vyasadeva wrote Srimad Bhagavatam on the bank of the Saraswati River under the instructions of Narada Muni, the knower of the truth. Being dissatisfied after writing the scriptures, Vyasadeva presented the Srimad Bhagavatam after visualizing the absolute truth through samadhi. He presented Srimad Bhagavatam for the benefit of third-class people who are unable to understand the deep meaning of a subject. Those great personalities who wrote the scriptures were all known as Vyasas, and they were all respected by people in general. In this regard, the title Vyasa indicates all Vyasas, beginning from Veda Vyas up to the Vyas who wrote Srimad Bhagavatam. When he was unable to ascertain the absolute truth after studying all the scriptures, then Veda Vyas, who was expert in the spiritual science, withdrew his mind and speech from those literatures, realized the truth through samadhi, and then wrote the Srimad Bhagavatam. The modern scholars also say that Srimad Bhagavatam appeared in Dravida Desh, South India, about 1,000 years ago. The living entity has a natural inclination for being attached to his native place. Therefore, even great personalities have this inclination to some extent. Due to the glorification found in Srimad Bhagavatam of Dravida Desh, which is not very ancient, it appears that Vedavyas was a native of that place. If the glories of Dravida Desh were mentioned in other scriptures, then we would have no right to give this conclusion. Our conclusion is further confirmed by the mention of a very recent holy place in Srimad Bhagavatam. It is stated in the Venkat Mahatmya, which is popular in the south, that Venkat Tirtha was established when Lakshmi Dev went to Kolhapura from Chola. Kolhapura is situated in the south of Satara. The Chalukya kings defeated the Cholas in the 8th century and established a large kingdom in that province. Therefore, Lakshmi went to Kolhapura, and Venkata was established at that time. For this reason, they do not hesitate to accept that Srimad Bhagavatam was written in the 9th century. Shatakopa, Yamunacharya, and Ramanujacharya vigorously preached Vaishnavism in the 10th century. They were also from Dravida Desh. They all highly respected Srimad Bhagavatam. So we cannot accept that Srimad Bhagavatam was written after the 9th century. Furthermore, when Sridhar Swami wrote his commentary on the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th century, there were already a few commentaries like Hanumad Bhashya available, so there is no need to further consider this matter. I have not found a means of determining the family name of the author of Srimad Bhagavatam. Whoever he may be, we are grateful, and with awe and reverence we accept that great personality, Vedavyas, as the spiritual master of the swan-like people. So far I have described the modern opinion in the dating of the scriptures that we are concerned with. There's no need to analyze all the scriptures of the Aryans. There were many other ancient scriptures studied by the Aryans. After considering the views of Playfair Sahib, Mahatma Archidekan, and Prat Sahib, Mahatma Archidekan Prat Sahib has decided that astrology was current in Aryavarta 1,000 years before the beginning of the Kali Yuga. Prior to that, the Vedas existed in the form of Shruti or hearing. Wilford Sahib has determined that the Vedic astrologer Parashar Rishi wrote this astrology book in 1391 BC. According to the opinion of Davis Sahib, this is confirmed in a verse of the Atharva Veda. But the possibility that this verse on astrology in the Atharva Veda was later added on was not considered by Wilford Sahib. According to our opinion, Archidkan Prat's calculation is more acceptable because the stars named after the 7 rishis were originally named after the Prajapatis. Since there was no written language at that time, astrology was expressed through various signs. In this way, medicine in the form of Ayurveda was practiced since very ancient times. If we consider all these things, this book will become voluminous, so we must stop here. We have described the various books that directly and indirectly explain spiritual science in the following chart. We have thus described the dating of incidents and scriptures as far as possible according to modern opinion. Swan-like people are not interested in quarrel. Therefore, if some contrary conclusion is presented with proper argument, we will accept it. We hope to hear further on these conclusions from future transcendentalists or intelligent materialists. According to our scriptures, the calculation of the dates are not like this. We believe only the statements of the scriptures. I have presented the modern conclusions for the benefit of the concerned people. According to them, the beginning of the Aryans' rule in India was 6,341 years ago. We have thus established the incomparably long history of India. No other civilization can compare with it. It is said that Egypt or Mysore is a very ancient country. It is estimated that the descriptions of Mentito, a historian from Mysore, that people started living in that country 3,553 BC. The name of their first king was Minas. It is calculated that his rule began when Harish Chandra was ruling India. Strange thing is this. There was a king named Manish Chandra who was a contemporary of Harish Chandra. It may be noted that how similar the names Manish Chandra and Minas are. It is also said that King Minas came to Egypt from some eastern country. The Great Pyramid was created by the Sufu dynasty. A king named Hyksos from the east attacked Egypt about 2000 BC, or about 200 years before the Battle of Kurukshetra. A religion similar to Varnashram Dharma was previously practiced in Egypt. From these facts, it appears there was some kind of connection between Egypt and India. Let future scholars research more about this. According to the opinion of the Hebrews, their kingdom was created around 4000 BC, probably from the time of King Shravasta. It is difficult, however, to prove these things nowadays. When the situation of the Hebrews and Mysore Egypt is such, there is no need to mention other races. Descriptions of incidents prior to the time of King Minos of Egypt are uncommon. The 1,000-year life history of Adam of the Hebrews has become the subject of discussion of the third-grade people of that country. Modern scholars of India compare his lifetime with the 71 Mahayuga lifespan of Manu, or the 1,000-year lifespan of Dasarad. Swan-like people should not think that we are trying to establish India as the oldest country in order to increase its prestigious position. Since Swan-like Vaishnavas see all people as equal, they accept whatever truth is substantiated regarding the age of the different races. The previous history of India and the age of the various scriptures are thus described, according to the modern scholar's opinion. Everyone has a right to decide whether or not these should be accepted as facts. The advancement of Vaishnavism does not depend on this type of conclusion. We know that Vaishnavism, the Vedas, and devotional scriptures such as Srimad Bhagavatam are eternal. Now, I will try to discuss the development and advancement of spiritual knowledge from the time of its appearance up to the present. The constitutional duty of the living entity is to inquire into the absolute truth. We have to accept that these eternal duties accompany the creation of the living entities. In the beginning, these eternal duties were self-manifested in the undeveloped state of considering the Lord and the living entity as one. At that time, specific differences between the Lord and the living entity had not yet been established, and the knot of devotion for the Lord had not yet been tied. This spiritual perception of oneness between the Lord and the living entity was current for a long time. But the sun-like truth does not like to be covered forever by the cloud of ignorance and illusion. From time to time, the rishis have revived the living entity's constitutional duties by introducing various methods like sacrifice, austerity, worship, self-control, peacefulness, tolerance, and charity. A long time ago, people rejected the idea of oneness with the Lord and began to engage in mundane fruitive activities. Falling from one illusion into another appears to be advancement for a person in illusion. But within a short time, this illusion is dispelled. When the Aryans considered the insignificant and adverse results of fruitive activities, they turned their minds towards liberation. But that also is simply dry and fruitless. The truth certainly prevails, however, even if it takes time. Later, when the incomparable truth appeared in the hearts of the Aryans, the form of ecstatic love became clear to them. Swan-like Vaishnavas have ascertained the following subjects regarding the living entity's eternal duties. They may have changed in the course of time. 1. Paramatma, the superconscious sun-like personality who is eternally full of knowledge and bliss. Jivatma, the minutely conscious rays of the Supreme Sun. 2. The superconscious Lord is different from the minutely conscious living entities, who are the superior eternal energy of the Lord. The living entities are individual, and they reside in different environments according to the qualification. The material world is an emanation from the superconscious Lord. 3. The material world is a perverted reflection of the spiritual world. The pure bliss of the spiritual world is pervertedly reflected as the happiness and distress of the material world. 4. The living entities have no relationship with the material world. The material world is the residence for only the conditioned souls. By the inconceivable energy of the Lord, the conditioned souls are encaged in material bodies. Some are absorbed in material happiness, and some endeavor for spiritual happiness. 5. The natural tendency for attachment to the Lord is the constitutional duty of a living entity. In conditional life, this constitutional duty is transformed into attachment for material enjoyment. This is a lamentable condition of life. 6. Liberation means being situated in the constitutional position of one's constitutional duties. This is attained through devotional service. 7. According to one's qualification, the cultivation of constitutional duties varies. It may be either direct or indirect. 8. Direct cultivation aims at realizing one's constitutional position. There is no possibility of other results. 9. Indirect cultivation results in irrelevant fruits related with one's material body. 10. Samadhi, or full absorption in the Supreme, is the primary and direct means of cultivation. Activities such as bodily maintenance that are meant to help attain samadhi are called primary indirect cultivation. 11. It is the living entity's eternal duty to cultivate Krishna consciousness, following in the mood of the residents of Raj through samadhi, because this is the most desirable goal. 12. The most glorious activity of a living entity is to engage according to one's qualification in discussions of the conjugal mellows enjoyed by Krishna, personification of sweetness. Among these 12 items, the first 4 concern the living entity's relationship with the Lord. Items 5 to 10 concern the living entity's duty, and the last 2 concern the supreme goal. During the reigns of the Prajapatis, Manus, and demigods, the science of one's relationship with the Lord remained in the form of a seed. They only considered that there was a worshipful personality who should be kept happy. This is understood from the Pranava and Gayatri mantras. At that time, there was some debate between karmis and jnanis over the duties of the living entities. A few personalities like Shaunaka and Sanatan completely neglected Pravritti Marg, the path of increasing material prosperity, while the Prajapatis, Manus, and demigods like Indra desired to satisfy Hari by advancing in material prosperity through the performance of sacrifices. As a result, the thought of heaven and hell entered their minds. At that time, the pure state of the living entities, the search for liberation, and ultimate love of God were unknown. In the later part of Vaivasvata Manu's reign, when the Smritis and histories were introduced, people began considering the science of self-realization and the goal of life. But it does not appear that there was any progress made towards the goal of life. During the reign of the outcasts and the Brahmins and Kshatriyas created by Parashuram, there was particular advancement made in understanding one's relationship with the Lord, the activities in cultivating that relationship, and the attainment of life's goal, as found in the Puranas and philosophical scriptures. The complete discussion of these 3 truths is found in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and the conclusions are clearly presented. But the Srimad Bhagavatam is like an ocean, and it is extremely difficult for a Madhyamadhikari to ascertain what part contains which jewels. After considering the most merciful disciple of Shatakopa, Sri Ramanujacharya, compiled the essential truths of Vaishnavism for the first time. For some time before that, Sri Shankaracharya wrote a commentary on Vedanta Sutras and thus extended the cultivation of knowledge so far that Bhaktivinode became surprised and full of anxiety. She hid herself within the core of the devotees' hearts. We cannot blame Shankaracharya, for he was a devotee of the Lord and benefactor of all. We therefore offer our obeisances unto him. He had a reason to engage in such work at that particular time. Everyone knows that about 500 BC, a great soul named Gautama took birth in the family of Shakas in the village of Kapilavatthu. He preached the principles of Jnanakanda so vigorously that the religious principles of Varnashram Dharma established by the Aryans were almost destroyed. The Buddhist philosophy that he preached became like a thorn in the side for all the Aryans' ancient practices. With the help of Kanishka, Havishka, and Vasudeva of the Siddhya dynasty, Buddhism gradually crossed Punjab and extended to various countries like China, Tattara, and Trivarta, which are situated north of the Himalayas. In the south, King Ashoka Ashoka vigorously preached Buddhism in Brahmadesh and Sri Lanka. Under the patronage of Ashoka, Buddhism was gradually spread throughout India by the disciples of Sariputra, Moggallana, and Kashyapa, and Ananda. The holy places of the Aryans were converted into holy places for Buddhists. All signs of Brahminical culture practically disappeared. In the 7th century, when this disaster was no longer tolerable, the Brahmins became very angry and conspired together to destroy Buddhism. At that time, by providence, the most learned and intelligent Shankaracharya became the commander-in-chief of the Brahmins in Kashi. By discussing his activities, it appears he was an incarnation of Parashuram. There are many different opinions regarding his birth. His Brahmin followers accepted him as the son of Mahadev. Actually, his widow mother was from Dravida Desh, but she moved to Kashi out of a desire to live in that holy place. Swan-like persons do not care about faults pertaining to a person's birth, because a person's greatness is judged according to his advancement in Vaishnavism. Narada, Vyas, Jesus, Shankara have all become respected throughout the world by the qualities of their work. There is no argument, but I have mentioned Shankaracharya at this time to illustrate a point. That is, from the 7th century, keen and powerful intelligence was found among the people of South India and nowhere else. From that time on, Shankaracharya, Satakopa, Yamunacharya, Ramanuja, Vishnu Swami, Madhvacharya, and many other great learned scholars appeared as shining stars in the southern sky. Shankaracharya was not satisfied with his Brahmin followers, so he introduced 10 types of sannyasis, such as Giri, Puri, and Bharati. With the help of these sannyasis, physical and mental strength, Shankaracharya converted the Brahmins who were attached to fruitive activities and prepared himself for vanquishing the Buddhists. Wherever he failed to convert the Buddhists to his philosophy, he engaged Nagas, naked sannyasis who took the help of weapons such as spears. Ultimately, he wrote a commentary on Vedanta, and thus he combined the Karmakanda of the Brahmins with the Jnanakanda of the Buddhists. In this way, he united both groups. After that, all the Buddhist temples and deities were converted into Vedic. Out of fear of being beaten, as well as by realizing the insignificance of their religious practices, the Buddhists helplessly accepted the authority of the Brahmins. Those Buddhists who hated being converted took the remnants of their culture and fled to Sri Lanka and Brahmadesh, Burma. The old Buddhists took Lord Buddha's tooth and went to Sri Lanka from Jagannath Puri. They left Buddha, his teachings, and his association in Jagannath Puri. Later, these three were identified as Jagannath, Baladev, and Subhadra. In the 5th century, a scholar from China named Pahian visited Jagannath Puri and joyfully wrote that Buddhism was present there in a pure state and there was no torture by the Brahmins. After this incident in the 7th century, another Chinese scholar named Wen Sam went to Jagannath Puri and wrote that the tooth of Lord Buddha had been taken to Sri Lanka and the Brahmins had totally polluted Puri. When we discuss these incidents, the activities of Shankaracharya appear astonishing. Shankaracharya has to some extent done a favor to India by evicting Buddhism. He helped stop the gradual deterioration of the ancient Aryan community. In particular, he changed the course of the Aryans' mentality by introducing a new method of thought on their scriptures. He even inspired them and urged to consider new subjects with their intelligence. The flower of devotion in the devotee's heart became unsteady as it floated in the current of Shankaracharya's arguments. Based on the strength of Shankaracharya's philosophy, Ramanuja, by the mercy of the Lord, wrote a commentary that differed from Shankara Bhashya. Thus, the strength and prosperity of Vaishnavism again increased. Within a short time, Vishnu Swami, Nimbarka, and Madhvacharya all introduced slight variations of the Vaishnava principles, by presenting their own commentaries on Vedanta. But they all followed the footsteps of Shankaracharya. Like Shankaracharya, they all wrote commentaries on the Bhagavad Gita, Vishnu Sahasranam, and the Upanishads. At that time, a thought arose in the hearts of people that in order to establish a sampradaya, one must have commentaries on the four above works. From these four Vaishnavas, the four Vaishnava sampradayas, such as Sri Sampradaya, have been introduced. Among the previously mentioned 12 truths, the first 10 were particularly acceptable by the four sampradayas. The last two truths were accepted to some extent by the Madhya, Nimbarka, and Vishnu Swami sampradayas. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu appeared in Navadvip in 1486. In the beginning of his life, he remained at home. Later, he accepted the renounced order of life and preached knowledge of the last two items. Where is the doubt that the land of Bengal is rarely attained even by the demigods? Who does not know that the son of Shachi, who is supremely worshipable by Vaishnavas, descended in the land of Bengal, distributed matchless wealth to one and all? Fortunately, we were born in that country. All Vaishnavas who are born in that land in the future will consider themselves fortunate like us. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with the help of Nityananda and Advaita, clearly explained the truth regarding one's relationship with the Lord. He clearly explained the truths of the living entity's relation with the Lord through Rupa, Sanatan, Jiva, Gopal Bhatt, and two Raghunas, Ramananda Roy, Swarup Damodar, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. He consolidated the process of acting in that relationship by establishing the supremacy of performing kirtan. Regarding the ultimate goal of life, he ascertained the simple means of relishing the mellows of Raj. If the readers carefully consider, they will find that the spiritual sciences gradually evolved from ancient times and became more simple, more clear, and more condensed. The more impurities arising from time and place are removed, the more the beauties of spiritual science brightly shine before us. The spiritual science took birth in the land of Kusha grass on the banks of the Saraswati River in Brahmavarta. As it gradually gained strength, the spiritual science spent its childhood in the abode of Badarik Ashram, which is covered with snow. It spent its boyhood in Naimisharanya on the banks of the Gomati River, and its youth on the beautiful banks of the Kaveri River in the province of Dravida. The spiritual science attained maturity in Navadvip on the banks of the Ganges, which purifies the universe. By studying the history of the world, it is found that the spiritual science reached its peak in Navadvip. The supreme absolute truth is the only object of love for the living entities. Unless one worships him with attachment, however, the living entity can never attain him. Even if a person gives up all affection for this world and thinks of the Supreme Lord, he is still not easily achieved. He is controlled and attained by transcendental mellows alone. Those mellows are of 5 types: Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya. The first mellow, Shanta, is the stage in which the living entity surpasses the pains of material existence and situates himself in transcendence. In that state, there is a little happiness, but no feeling of independence. At that time, the relationship between the practitioner and the Lord is not yet established. Dasya Ras is the second mellow. It contains all the ingredients of Shantaras as well as affection. The Lord is my master. I am his eternal servant. This type of relationship is found in Dasya Ras. No one will care much for any of the best things of this world unless they are connected with affection. Therefore, Dasya Ras is better than Shanta Ras in many ways. Just as Dasya Ras is better than Shanta, know for certain that Sakya is superior to Dasya. In Dasya Ras, there is a thorn in the form of awe and reverence. But the main ornament in Sakya Ras is the feeling of friendship and equality. Among the servants, anyone who is a friend is superior. There is no doubt about this. In Sakya-rasa, all the wealth of Shanta and Dasya is included, just as Shakya is superior to Dasya, namely Vatsalya is superior to Shakya. This is easily understood. Among all the friends, the son is more dear and the source of more happiness. In Vatsalya Rasa, the wealth of 4 rasas, beginning with Shanta, is found. Although Vatsalya Rasa is superior to these other rasas, it appears insignificant before Madhurya Rasa. There may be many secrets unknown between father and son, but this is not the case between wife and husband. Therefore, if we deeply consider, it will be seen that all the above-mentioned rasas are seen in perfection within Madhurya Rasa. If we go through the histories of these 5 rasas, it is clearly believed that Shanta Rasa was seen in the beginning days of India, when the soul was not satisfied after performing sacrifices with material ingredients. Then transcendentalists like Shaunaka and Sanatana, Sanat Kumara and Sananda, Narada and Mahadev all became detached from the material world, situated in transcendence, and realized Shanta Rasa. Much later, Dasya Rasa manifested in Hanuman, the leader of the monkeys. That Dasya Rasa gradually expanded to the northwest and manifested in a great personality named Moses. Long after Hanuman, the leader of the monkeys, Uddhava and Arjuna became the qualified authorities of Sakya Rasa. They preached about this Rasa through the world. Gradually that Rasa expanded up to the Arabian countries and touched the heart of Muhammad, the knower of religious principles. Vatsalya Das manifested throughout India in different forms at different times. Among the different forms, Vatsalya mixed with opulence, crossed India, and appeared in a great personality named Jesus Christ, who was a preacher of Jewish religious principles. Madhurya Rasa first shone brightly in Vraj. It is extremely rare for this Rasa to enter the hearts of conditioned souls, because this Rasa tends to remain with qualified pure living entities. Navadvip Chandra, Sri Shachi Kumara, preached this secret Rasa along with his followers. This Rasa has not crossed beyond India as yet. A short while ago, a scholar from England named Newman realized something about this Rasa and wrote a book about it. The people of Europe and America have not been satisfied with Vatsalya mixed with opulence as preached by Jesus Christ. I hope, by the grace of the Lord, in a very short time they will become attached to drinking the intoxicating nectar of Madhurya Rasa. It has been seen that any Rasa that appears in India eventually spreads to Western countries. Therefore, within a short time, Madhurya Rasa will be preached throughout the world, just as the sun first rises in India and gradually spreads its light to the Western countries. The matchless shining of spiritual truth appear first in India and gradually spread to the Western countries. The past compilers of the scriptures have established the appropriate holy names to deliver one in the different ages after analyzing the people's stage of advancement. The holy names to deliver one in Satya Yuga are as follows: Narayana Paraveda, Narayana Parakshara, Narayana Paramuktir, Narayana Paragati. The purport of this verse is that Lord Narayan is the goal of all science, language, and liberation, and he is the supreme destination. The name of the absolute truth mixed with opulence is Narayan. The Supreme Lord is fully realized in the form of Narayan, who is surrounded by his associates in Vaikuntha. Pure Shanta Rasa and a little Dasya Rasa is found in this stage. Ram Narayananta Mukunda Madhusudana Krishna Keshava Kamsare Hare Vaikuntha Vamana. These are the holy names to deliver one in Treta Yuga. The names that are mentioned in this text indicate Narayan's prowess. At this stage, full Dasya Rasa and a reflection of Satya Rasa are indicated. Hare Murari Madhu Kataibare Gopal Govinda Makunda Sore Yagnesha Narayana Krishna Vishnu Virashrayamam Jagadish Raksha. These are the holy names to deliver one in Dwapara Yuga. The names that are mentioned in this verse aim towards Krishna, who is the shelter of the unsheltered persons. In this stage, there is a prominence of Shantya, Dasya, Sakyaya, and Vatsalya Rasa. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. These are the topmost sweet names of the Lord. There is no prayer in this mantra. Provocation for all rasas mixed with affection is found in this mantra. There is no mention of the Lord's prowess or giving of liberation. The mantra reveals only that a soul has an indescribable attraction for the supersoul by the thread of love. These names are like the mantra for those who are on the path of Madhurya Ras. Constant deliberation on these names is the best form of worshiping the Lord. All spiritual activities of swan-like people, such as worshiping the deity, following vows, studying scriptures, are included in these holy names. There is no consideration of time, place, and candidate for chanting the mantra. Chanting of this mantra does not depend on the instructions of a guru or worshiping a deity for some reward. It is the duty of swan-like people to take shelter of these names while accepting the previously mentioned 12 truths. Swan-like people of foreign countries whose language and social position are different should accept these holy names in their own language by taking a hint from this mantra. This means that in the process of worshiping this mantra, there should not be any complex scientific consideration, useless arguments, or any type of direct or indirect prayer. If there is any prayer at all, it should be aimed at advancing one's love for God. Then it will be faultless. Swan-like people lead simple lives, completely satisfied and internally remaining surrendered souls. Those who have divine eyes consider them equipoised yogis, and those who are less intelligent or third-paid people consider them as attached to material enjoyment. Some people may occasionally even consider them averse to the Lord. A swan-like person can identify another swan-like brother who possesses all the appropriate symptoms, whether he is from the same country or not. Although their dress, language, worship, deity, and behavior may appear different, they should freely address each other as brother. These types of people are called Paramahamsas, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the scripture that is meant for such Paramahamsas. I cannot end this introduction without discussing one more subject. Due to prejudices, many learned persons accuse the swan-like persons of overly discussing loving affairs and being thus incompetent in family affairs. They say that unless one endeavors to prosper in family life, the Supreme Lord is not satisfied, and because of excessive endeavors for self-realization, affection for family life diminishes. This argument, however, is extremely weak, because if one carefully endeavors to act according to the desire of the Supreme Lord, and in the course of one's temporary material life is ruined, then what is the harm? It is a fact that the material world was created in order to fulfill a distant plan of the Supreme Lord, but no one can explain what that plan is. Some people guess that the soul was first born in this gross world in the form of a human being. The Supreme Lord has created this material world with the desire that the living entities would gradually advance by following religious principles. Some people say that this material world will become a happy place like heaven through human intelligence. And yet there are others who have decided that at the end of the body, they will achieve liberation in the form of nirvana. All these conclusions are useless as blind people ascertaining the shape of an elephant. Swan-like people do not enter into this type of useless argument because no one can come to the proper conclusion by human intelligence. What is the need to search for a conclusion? If we maintain our life simply, while remaining subordinate to the Supreme Lord, then by His mercy everything will easily be revealed to us. Persons who are pierced by the arrows of lust will naturally endeavor for material prosperity. Let them make the Let them make the material world prosperous, and we will utilize that prosperity. Let them discuss subjects like economics, and let them accumulate wealth. And we, by Krishna's mercy, will use that wealth for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord. But in the course of maintaining this material body, if there is any advancement of our material situation, there is no harm. We are completely indifferent to the advancement and deterioration of our material situation. But we are naturally busy for the advancement of the living entity's spiritual life. We are even ready to throw the happiness of our life in the water in order to always benefit our brothers. The primary engagement of Vaishnavas is to deliver their fallen brothers from the well of material existence. The more the Vaishnava family expands, the more the atheist family diminishes. This is the natural law of the universe. Let the love and devotion of all living entities flow toward the unlimited Supreme Lord. Let Vaishnava principles, which are the source of happiness, gradually spread from one end of the universe to the other. Let the hearts of those who are averse to the Lord melt with love of God. Let the mercy of the Lord, the association of devotees, and the influence of devotional service, let the third-grade people become first-grade people and take shelter of pure ecstatic love. Let the exalted Madhyama Adhikaris give up their doubts, and the cultivation of knowledge, and establish themselves in the science of love. Let the whole universe echo with the sound of the congregational chanting of the holy names of Hari. Shri Shri Krishnarpanamastu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Let's end the introduction to Krishna Samhita by Bhaktivinode Thakur.